Since the release of Renegades and subsequently the Praxic Blade exotic sword, I have spent the past couple of days theory crafting and testing to find what I believe is the perfect hunter build to run with it, and I believe I have finally arrived at just that. You are borderline invincible with this setup, have ludicrously strong ad clear, have a ton of crowd control, a ton of debuffing, and it absolutely works like a charm for keeping both yourself and all of your teammates alive in even the most challenging difficulties of content. So let me tell you exactly how it works. But before I do, I want to mention the 2 emblem giveaways that we do customary with every build video, one of which will go to a random lucky viewer who likes the video, leaves a comment down below, and is subscribed to the channel. The other of which will be hidden somewhere in the video. So just keep your eyes peeled, keep watching. First one to find it, it's all yours. Now, in talking about this build, the first thing that I want to address that might have some people a little concerned is, oh no, it's an exotic class item. Mactics, do I need this specific role for this build to work? No, you do not. In fact, there are many different exotic class item role combos that you could potentially have that will work perfectly fine with this build without losing out on too many of the benefits. The number one best role that you can have is the Renewal Cyrtarachne combination. However, if you have a Renewal Coyote combination, that can also work exceptionally well too. But if you don't have either of those 2 specific combinations, you can really use any exotic class item with the Renewal perk or any exotic item with the Cyrtarachne perk, which means you have basically one option here, and then the 6 remaining options with Renewal, followed by the 7 remaining options with Cyrtarachne, which if my math is correct, that means you have 15 potential exotic class item options to work with. So why specifically do we love the Renewal Cyrtarachne combination or either of the 2? Well, as you can see here, anytime we use any grenade with Cyrtarachne, we get Woven Mail for a gigantic damage resistance buff. And if we use a Duskfield grenade specifically with Spirit of Renewal, that will also proc Spirit of Cyrtarachne and will freeze everything inside of that Duskfield grenade, of course. And allies inside of that Duskfield grenade, that's both us and our allied teammates, will all gain Frost Armor. So if you put these 2 perks together, it's a crazy amount of damage resistance anytime you throw a Duskfield grenade or anytime you stand in the Duskfield grenade, and of course anything in that Duskfield grenade is going to get frozen, so it can't even fire back at you. But how does this play into the Praxic Blade? Well, if we take a look at the Praxic Blade, and you might notice you do not need to have any exotic catalyst for this, you do not need any of the mods. The only thing that is truly beneficial, which again is not required, is having one of the 2 available cores, either the Impact core, where melee damage from this weapon applies an elemental effect that matches your equipped super, or the Refraction core, where reflection damage from this weapon applies an elemental effect that matches your equipped super. Now, if you don't have either of these cores yet, you can get the Refraction core by spending credits at the homeless fallen fella who hangs out somewhere around Tharsis Outpost, or if you would like the Impact core, which in my opinion is the better of the 2 cores to have for this build, on certain days when you head into the Tharsis Cantina, which is the main building in Tharsis Outpost, if you see Honor, if you take a right at her, occasionally this thing right here will allow you to spend 4,000 credits, which will directly give you the Impact core. Unfortunately, it's only certain days and not every single day, so if you do not yet have that, you will need to wait for it to appear to get the Impact core. But if you don't have the Impact core, it's okay. There is still a way we can get similar benefits to what the Impact core would provide. But before we talk about what that alternative way to get these same benefits are, we need to talk about what benefits we're even getting in the first place, because which of these 5 options are we going with? And the answer for that is we want the Weaken option, which will be provided by the Shadow Shot Deadfall super equipped on our Prismatic subclass. This effectively makes it so that every single swing of the blade that we do is going to weaken targets, which is going to synergize fantastically with the rest of our subclass. But before we talk about the rest of our subclass, I do want to address how you can get similar benefits without actually having that Impact core, and those similar benefits are going to come from the artifact, specifically the Singularity Blade artifact perk, where while you have a Void Elemental buff, melee and sword hits weaken targets, while melee and sword final blows are going to create a weakening burst. You can obtain an elemental buff like this by utilizing something with a perk like Repulsor Brace in conjunction with the stabilizing round, something like the Word of Crota, or one of the other 70 weapons that has a combination like this, to get this Void Elemental buff, so you can go ahead and get that thing going. Furthermore, if we take advantage of any other debuffing option, we will be proccing the Stylish Executioner Void aspect, which will give us invisibility, and if we swing the Praxic Blade while we're in invisibility, that will of course debuff enemies with weaken. Another thing that works really nicely, not only with this artifact for the alternative option of replacing the impact core functionality, but just blanket wide for the entirety of this build, is this third column artifact perk, Power from Pain, where rapid final blows against weakened combatants grant you Devour. Devour is not only going to be extremely useful for fueling Singularity Blade if you do not have the impact core, because Devour is a void elemental buff in and of itself, meaning all melee and sword hits will subsequently weaken additional targets, and obviously final blows while in possession of Devour will increase the duration of Devour, but having the Devour buff and getting final blows will also give you a large chunk of grenade energy refunded. And again, if we recall back to our exotic class item, everything revolves around our grenade for significant damage resistance buffs. That grenade specifically, of course, is going to be the Dustfield Grenade, which can take advantage of both the Spirit of Cyrtarachne and the Spirit of Renewal 2 in 1, so that our damage resistance is absolutely insane. Looking at the rest of our subclass, I really like going with the Threaded Spectre aspect for 3 additional fragment slots, where anytime we activate our class ability, we are going to make a strand clone that is going to draw aggro away from ourselves and other allies. So if all of those damage resistance buffs weren't enough, the ability to basically tell enemies to look over here instead so that they aren't shooting at you or your allies is going to make survivability even easier. These things are also going to provide a little bit of damage as well when they get broken and spawn their threadlings and take out a bunch of enemies. We're also going to have our class ability up rather frequently thanks to some of our fragments, such as Facet of Hope, where while we have an elemental buff, something like Devour or something like Invisibility, our class ability is going to regenerate more quickly. This is also going to be nice for the fact that we're utilizing Gambler's Dodge, and every time we use Gambler's Dodge, we are not only getting our Threaded Spectre generated, but we're also refunding a significant amount of melee energy to something like Withering Blade, so we can get even more slowing and freezing and crowd control out on the battlefield. Other notable fragments that you're going to want to take are the Facet of Protection, where while surrounded by combatants, you're more resistant to incoming damage, which makes perfect sense for a close range sword build. We're also going to want the Facet of Ruin, which is going to increase the size and damage of the burst when we shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target, which is going to be anything that's affected by our multiple Withering Blades or anything that sits in our Duskfield Grenades. We also love something like the Facet of Purpose, where anytime we pick up an Orb of Power, we're going to get Void Overshield thanks to the fact that we have Shadow Shot Deadfall, which again is going to be another way to take advantage of the Singularity Blade artifact perk, which will be particularly useful again if you don't have that impact core to get weakening on every single hit. This will do that just fine for you. Finally, we have the Facet of Grace, where anytime we defeat targets with kinetic weapons, such as the Praxic Blade, it gives us bonus Transcendence energy, so we can have higher uptime on our Transcendence, which is going to give us a 5% damage bonus to our Praxic Blade hits as well, in conjunction with constantly refunding all of our specialized grenades and melees, so we can do a flurry of abilities, which is going to be particularly nice when it comes to crowd controlling things further. It's also worth noting that there is technically an alternative variation of this build where you swap the Facet of Grace for the Facet of Dawn, and you swap the Shadow Shot Deadfall for Golden Gun Marksman. What this is going to allow you to do is then going to make the Praxic Blade swings scorch enemy targets. Now don't worry, this will still proc things like Stylish Executioner, and you might be thinking, well Mac, how do I then get weakening on the sword swings? How do I get Devour and all that goodness as well? Well, the way you would be able to accomplish that is once again through activating something like Singularity Blade, by getting something like Overshield, or getting kills while you're in invisibility from Stylish Executioner, and then from those multiple weakened kills, you would then pick up Power from Pain, which will give you Devour, tons of grenade energy regeneration in conjunction with fueling Singularity Blade furthermore, so you continue weakening everything and scorch everything on every subsequent sword swing, and you also have the option of a radiant damage buff Golden Gun if you would like. In my personal opinion, when you're starting out with the build, go with the Shadow Shot Deadfall option because it's way easier to maintain your buffs and maintain your core loop. However, once you get really experienced with this build, if you want to min-max a little bit more and get a little bit more mileage to get weakening swings and scorching swings on every single swing of the Praxic Blade, you can start to experiment with trying to keep the loop up with simply the artifact perks and not keeping it up with weakening swings from Shadow Shot Deadfall. As far as stats go, we really just care about extremely high ability uptime, so we can constantly be throwing out Dustfield Grenades and using our class ability to generate Threaded Specters and throw out more Withering Blades, since our class ability does refund melee energy. So we're going to want to go with 100 grenade stat. We don't care about going over 100 because that's just going to increase the damage of our grenade, which we don't care about for Dustfield. It's really just a crowd control grenade. We want class stat at 100 as well. Don't care about going over 100 because that's just going to give us Overshield. We have more than enough damage resistance and aggro pull with Threaded Spectre to not really need that. Other than that, we want a little bit of stat points in our melee so that our Gambler's Dodge is going to refund a decent amount of it. Somewhere from 45 to 55 will be more than okay. A decent amount of super stats so we can be dropping a lot of tethers for a lot of debuffing and crowd control. And then the rest is going to want to go into your weapon stat, because that is going to significantly increase the damage output of your Praxic blade. Specifically, we are going to be getting 15% bonus damage on top of another 6.7% bonus damage against bosses, which feels really, really good. Finally, for our mods, on the helmet, we have kinetic siphon, so that Praxic blade double kills generate orbs of power, a special ammo finder for more Praxic blade ammo, and a dynamo for bonus super energy whenever we use our class ability for more tethers. Down on our gloves, we go bolstering detonation, which is going to give us class ability and energy whenever we cause damage with a grenade. So as enemies sit in our dust-filled grenades, that will give us class ability energy for more specters and withering blades, in conjunction with a couple melee font mods, really just because there's nothing better to run on here. You're doing most of the work with your Praxic blade. You don't need any loaders. You don't need any dexterity. In terms of the ability refunding stuff, we already have more than enough ability energy, and we're really not getting enough grenade final blows to justify firepower, or enough powered melee final blows rather to justify something like heavy-handed. Down on the chest piece, concussive dampener, resistance of choice, and then a kinetic ammo generation, so that anytime you get kinetic kills, it is going to juice up your ammo meters, which of course Praxic blade is going to be the majority of our kills. Down on the boots, double kinetic weapon surge, which is going to give us a 17% damage bonus to our Praxic blade whenever we are armor charged. And then an innervation mod, so anytime we pick up an orb of power, we get reduced grenade cooldown for more dust-filled grenade throws. Finally, on the class item, Reaper, so that anytime we dodge, next weapon final blow, Praxic blade final blow will generate an orb of power, give us all our armor charge, time dilation, so armor charge surges fonts last longer, and powerful attraction, so that our class ability can scoop up orbs. So with this build all put together, let me load up an invadable instance of Grandmaster Lawless Frontier, the hardest difficulty that we can do, so I can show you exactly how you want to play this build and show you exactly how good it truly is. And I know I've been beating this tip to death recently in my other Praxic blade guide videos, but I do want to mention it again just because it is so important. The number one way that you want to use the Praxic blade, pretty much uncircumstantially, is you want to do the light attack, light attack, light attack, heavy attack combo. Main reason being is because the heavy attack after the 3 light attack swings does a crazy amount of damage and doesn't consume any ammo whatsoever. -1, -1, -1, and then this heavy attack right there will not consume any ammo. So it does loads of damage and doesn't eat any ammo. There is literally never a reason not to do it, even if you don't think you're actually going to hit the target, or if the heavy attack is going to go into like a weak trash mob. Always worthwhile to do it. Now that we're trying to capture this plate, I'm just going to go ahead and throw down my dust-filled grenade so I get some frost armor stacks and my woven mail. And at this point, I'm basically unkillable with all the damage resistance that I have, so I can just run around and start absolutely cutting through all of these enemies. So I'm just going to start ripping my combos. Got a big harpy right here. Absolutely no problem for this bad boy. Got a couple dudes on here, so we'll throw out our dust-filled grenade again. Again, frost armor right there. Tons of damage resistance in conjunction with the fact that it's also going to freeze them so that they can't even shoot back at us anyway. Our allies are going to be allowed to get in here to also get frost armor. And again, since we have Devour up, which is coming from that artifact, every single kill we get is going to give us a whole bunch of grenade energy. I gotta deal with this punk invader real quick. Wah, wah. Get smoked, buddy. Come back again, I'll have a tether ready for you. It's also worth noting, too, that having something like that repulsor brace to stabilizing rounds weapon on is also really nice if there's ever a situation where you can't be close range to the enemies. Just being able to maintain something like an overshield, maintain something like Devour, really, really solid. Let's get a dust-filled grenade down again. I'm going to go ahead and hit a dodge so that we make our threaded specter, so that the wyvern is more focused on that threaded specter than he is on me. So we have our transcendence available too, so I'll always just go ahead and pop that for the bonus damage, even if I'm not really using too much of the transcendence abilities. Like I said, we honestly get our transcendence back so quickly due to the fact that we have that facet of grace on and we're getting all kinetic weapon final blows, as we are just smoking everything with Praxic blade. Also, even throwing our spike grenade while we are in transcendence, although we won't be able to take advantage of the renewal option, it will still proc Cyrtarachne, so we'll get that damage resistance from that as well. Be chucking in some shurikens whenever we have the option to do so. Hit another dodge so we can get our threaded specter up. This Minotaur will be more concerned with the threaded specter. Another nice thing about this build too is the Praxic blade absolutely chews through the ablative armor shields that enemies have in Renegades now, like the hit rate based shields. It seems to just like basically one-shot them. Okay, let's get our dust-filled grenade down. We're smoking everything, so weaken is applying because we have deadfall as our tether. which means we're going to get Devour after 3 simple kills, which means we get a ton of grenade energy back, which means we can spam our Renewal grenades, spam Frost Armor, spam Cyrtarachne, CC everything. As you can see, I'm just sorting the day away. And my grenade is just up all the time, keep throwing it down. Always doing the 1, 2, 3 light attack with the Praxic blade, heavy attack on the 4th, doesn't consume any ammo, and smokes anything that is unlucky enough to be on the receiving end of it. Got a tanky Minotaur right here, shouldn't be a problem with the 1, 2, 3, 4. He's weakened now, so our additional 4th swing will smoke him. He's gone. Very, very simple build to use. My tether's up as well. I should probably be tethering too. We get our super back so quickly as well with this build, just from all the orbs that we're generating with all of the Praxic blade multi-kills in conjunction with the dynamo that we're proccing whenever we dodge. Please die, please die, please die. It's also worth noting as well, as you continue to accrue XP over the expansion, it's also very, very nice to get some additional options here on the artifact. Stuff like kinetic synthesis can be really good for higher ammo uptime on your Praxic blade. Stuff like combination Argent blade can also be really good. Briefly pause after executing a light attack, then followed up with a light or heavy attack to empower your sword for a short time, granting it bonus damage, which is really, really nice. And then something like Sword Storm combo, performing 3 sword light attacks followed by a heavy attack, which is the combo we want to be doing anyway with the Praxic blade, is going to then summon penumbral blades that surround you to damage and disorient combatants. So we really got a lot of juice going into pretty much any Praxic blade setup that's always going to be fueled by a lot of the artifact perks that we have on at the current moment. But this core setup that we have with Prismatic Hunter just takes it up to 11. So here we got a ton of enemies again, dropping another big old tether. Everything shares damage, everything gets pulled in because of deadfall. Throw some dodges, got our Devour up. Throw more dust fields, more damage resistance. The nice thing about the dust fields too is because you get frost armor while you're standing inside of the dust field in conjunction with the fact that we're using a sword build, it usually goes hand in hand that we're always just going to naturally want to throw the dust field on the enemies and stand in it to get the frost armor stacks anyway as we sword them, because we want to be close to the enemies anyway. So here's our situation. We'll hit a dodge, get our clone out, pop our transcendence so that we have the free damage bonus. We can also get our grenade out, so we get some Cyrtarachne proccing. And you see, we have these extremely tanky Gambler Goblins. Doesn't really matter. We're chewing right through them because they're all weakened. We got another tether up as well. We can throw out another grenade, give me some more Cyrtarachne action. And you'll notice as well, we've been using the Praxic blade literally 100% of the time, non-stop comboing. Our ammo has not even become close to being a problem. We're basically max ammo the entire time with all the ammo generation that we've got up at the moment through all of our mods, through some of our artifact perks. Can just basically swing the day away. So you're going for straight weaken rather than weaken and scorch. Again, like I said, I think if you're just starting out with this build, keep things simple and just go with the tether setup. That way it's very easy to maintain your Devour and your weakening strikes. However, once you get more comfortable with this build where you can have maximum uptime on your weakening strikes because you're always going to have something like Devour because you're executing it through Stylish Executioner, you get 3 kills while you're invisible, which is not relatively hard because obviously you're going to still go invisible on every final blow with the Praxic blade because you'll be scorching instead of weakening. You'll eventually get the weakening strikes, but just start out baby steps, and then you can work your way into the Golden Gun Radiant variation where you're scorching and weakening on every single swing, and that'll just take the build up to 11 as well. But I figure at the current moment, probably still a couple individuals that don't have the impact core yet and are going to be reliant on getting weakened through artifact perks anyway. So that is kind of the version of the build I wanted to demonstrate initially. I think it's the first step to mastering this build with the weaken and scorch variation as well. And as you can see here, even without scorching swings on every single attack, we're still, I mean, everything is still getting absolutely slaughtered. Additionally, it's worth noting that if we take a look at the Praxic blade, once the Equilibrium dungeon becomes available on December 13th, we will be able to obtain the offensive form of the Praxic blade, where landing 3 melee or throw attacks is going to grant ammo to this weapon, and it's going to deal increased damage against bosses. So the amount of damage that this build is going to be able to do is going to go even higher once we have access to that dungeon. So this thing is only going to get even better. Hopefully it's clear as day how truly strong and fun this Praxic Blade Prismatic Hunter setup is. I know it's always scary to see an exotic class item setup because it's like, ooh, if I don't have the exotic class items, does that mean I can't use this build? 15 different potential options for you to go ahead and try it out with, as really you only need Renewal or Cyrtarachne because one of those damage resistance buffs is going to keep you nice and healthy in conjunction with all the other things that we have going on. Devour for healing, Threaded Spectre for aggro pull, Stylish Executioner for invisibility and all that goodness, protection for damage resistance, everything going on. I mean, you're going to be more than chilling. Again, I would encourage you to start out with the Deadfall Tether Facet of Grace configuration, but once you get really comfortable with this and you can let the artifact mods kind of carry your void buff uptime, you can go ahead and give the Facet of Dawn and Golden Gun Marksman variation a try as well for scorching on every single hit alongside the weakening on every hit, plus a ranged high damage option in Golden Gun Super whenever you would like. So I hope you enjoyed this build. Please be sure to like the video if you did and subscribe to the channel if you want to see future builds. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.